Hello and welcome back to the podcast. Uh, it I have not been. I did not make one last week, but we are back this week and next week as well. I'm recording next week's one today. Um, and so yeah, if you read the last blog post, if you heard the last week's podcast, like we talked a bit about YouTube and what YouTube is as a platform in the creator economy, in the world of creators, the state of YouTube, that is, in the world of online media production. And we realized that YouTube as a platform is trying to offer creators the opportunity to make different types of content. It's almost like promoting it. That, like, by different types of content, I mean like live streams, long form video, and short form video. Uh, what I didn't touch on though is community posts and whether it can replace a platform like Twitter for online video creators. So if you don't spend much time on YouTube and if you don't use the YouTube app, you may not even know this, like, such a thing exists. And I don't blame you. They have been a thing for a while, but they used to be one of those useless features which no one really ever used. And case in point is YouTube stories, another one of these useless features. But this changed like a couple of years ago, I think. YouTube's algorithm changed, and I think it was around when the pandemic started, but I can't be completely sure. And they started to promote community posts a lot more, and more specifically polls. And this, as an economics student will tell you, created an incentive to create community posts. And the boom of community posts began. And yeah, people started making lots of community polls. Polls specifically actually took a huge shot in the arm, and they did super well. And yeah, polls became a huge part of YouTube. I assume people began to ask community's opinion on stuff, and the community engagement is what broke the YouTube algorithm. Because engagement, I believe, is a pretty strong metric that YouTube thinks of when they create, like, at least what the YouTube algorithm itself thinks of. Now, at the moment, it is pretty much impossible to think of YouTube without thinking of community posts and polls. Now, why am I comparing it with Twitter? It seems kind of counterintuitive, to be honest, but I promise it makes some sense. Because Twitter, at least what most creators use Twitter for, is to get feedback from their communities about their content, also to share their opinions with their communities. Don't get me wrong, people should not delete their Twitters just yet, but community posts achieve the same thing now, I believe. At least my that's what my brain tells me. I think community posts are comparable to Twitter, at least for this use, and may even be better than Twitter. And there are a couple of reasons for this. Firstly, they're both mobile focused, so they're like, I mean, most people use Twitter on mobile, and only tech heads use Twitter on uh, computer. At least most people I know. I don't know any non-tech person who uses Twitter on a computer desktop. And they're both like mainly visible and mainly used on the mobile app, and for both cases, YouTube as well as Twitter. And this it's not limited to mobile apps. Don't get me wrong. Like, you can still see community posts on a YouTube. What do you call it? The YouTube website, and you can see community posts. You can read Twitter tweets. I was going to say Twitters. You can read tweets on the Twitter website, but it is still mainly mobile focused. And secondly, I actually think the audience, at least, so creators tend to use Twitter for survey purposes, and I think the sample for the survey is more representative on YouTube community posts than Twitter. This is because people who, okay, first of all, 70% of people who watch YouTube watch on phone, which is pretty ridiculous. And so yeah, most people who, at least the people that matter, the audience, there's a higher number of them on YouTube. They're more involved on YouTube, and there's less likelihood of them being on a platform like Twitter. Like Twitter, the Twitter audience is basically a subset of the YouTube audience. People who watch the audience on YouTube will see stuff they post on YouTube, and they won't necessarily see stuff that they post on Twitter. So yeah. But yeah, why is Twitter dead? Uh, of I don't think so. It seems highly unlikely that it'll die just because of this. Creators are a very small portion, at least YouTube creators are a very small portion of Twitter's audience, and I don't think that's about to change anytime soon. And so yeah, Twitter has other uses which community posts don't have. Community posts are intrinsically linked to a YouTube channel, at least some sort of video content. Most of the time, at least, I'm not really seen many examples of uh, anything else. But yeah, Twitter is basically an independent news site of some sense, community-driven independent news site, and it's, as Musk says, it's kind of a town square. And Twitter, but what I think might happen or should happen is Twitter might stop being used as a tool for surveying video watchers, or at least people who watch your content. They may not be surveyed on Twitter anymore, or at least not as often, or not purely Twitter. That might become the job of YouTube community posts, either in conjunction with or without Twitter altogether. So yeah, I think that's all in terms of stuff I've been thinking about. It's kind of a short episode today, and you will get to know why tomorrow, or rather next week. I'm going to schedule the podcast episode and put it out next week. Next week's is also very short. It's even shorter than this. It'll probably be only about 5 minutes. So yeah. So this week's updates. So the disappointment gap. It's an interesting concept which was in the book Atomic Habits by James Clear. So in the book, he says that it takes consistent effort to gain results, which makes perfect sense. But there is like a time lag between when you start doing something and when you start seeing results from doing a thing. Like if you start a habit, only after some time will you see the results of that habit. And like, but so results don't scale linearly basically. After a point, after threshold, they like gain infinitely, pretty much. They gain really fast, but effort scales linearly. So there is a point below the threshold where effort is greater than result, and that point is where you feel that you're doing so much but you're not getting anything out of it. That's called the disappointment gap. Secondly, purple cows. This is kind of an interesting analogy. Basically, if you're walking on the road and you see a purple cow, you will stop. But if you see a normal cow, you won't stop. You'll see a purple cow because it is unique and it is unseen. You'll pay attention to it. And basically, to get an audience in an online world, you need to be a purple cow, which is something I need to work on, of course. So yeah, thanks for listening. That's all for today. See you next week.